Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Katie Bavoso from The Channel Company, coming to you live from Atlanta with a panel of WatchGuard's top security experts to talk about a foundational concept of WatchGuard's product portfolio: unified security. Over the years, WatchGuard has made a number of strategic acquisitions that have made it possible for the unified security vision to become a reality, with data from the perimeter all the way to the endpoint working together under a single pane of glass to provide the ultimate cybersecurity protection. Today, we'll do a deep dive on the unified security platform, and joining me for that are some key players of the WatchGuard team. We have Stephen Helm, Senior Product Marketing Manager, Sean Banahan, Director of Sales US, Rui Lopez, Senior Technical Evangelist Americas, and Nick Medlock, Sales Engineer US. We have a lot to go over with you today, so while we go through everything, if you have a question, please enter it into the chat and we'll do our best to take it live or cover it in our Q&A at the end of the session. What we'll cover over the next 2+ hours is a detailed overview of the unified security platform and why it matters to the partners, as well as enhancements in WatchGuard Cloud that allow for greater visibility control within the network. And then we'll break for 15 minutes. When we come back, we'll go through comprehensive security and the opportunity it offers for new revenue streams, along with updates on WatchGuard's identity framework, our FlexPay model, and finish up with the benefits of automation. We are, of course, recording this session and will make it available to you along with the slides, so sit back now, relax, and let's talk about unified security. With that, I'll hand it over to Sean Banahan, Director of Sales US, to get us started. Welcome, Sean.
Hi, thank you. Thanks so much for the introduction. As you pointed out, I'm in our sales department, which gives me the opportunity to engage with our MSP partners on a daily basis. So during the course of the conversation today, I'll be talking and bringing in insights from those conversations, along with data that we've pulled through a collaborative effort with a private third-party research firm. So I'll be bringing that information in. The first piece of data that we've got is up on this first slide here, which says, a lack of unified cybersecurity strategy is the #1 reason organizations fall victim to ransomware attack. I wanted to start with this slide because it really talks about why we're here today. This is why WatchGuard is moving forward with a USP platform. Before I get into any more data, though, and why don't I introduce my compatriot here, Stephen Helm.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. And so that was, I think, a great stat to start the session out on, and that's the recognition that, without a unified strategy, a lot of businesses are at the mercy of ransomware and other types of attacks. And so, the first slide I want to sort of talk us through is all about complexity and the complexity that a disconnected security stack causes and what the impact of that complexity can be. Ultimately, complexity is the enemy of security. And I have 3 examples up on the screen here of breaches that occurred in the last year, 2021, especially to start off this year, extremely virulent threat landscape. And we've seen some very headline-grabbing attacks that we need to be aware of, and that there's some lessons learned to be pulled from. And so the first one, probably everybody on the phone call understands and has heard of this one. That's the Colonial Pipeline attack that happened in the beginning of this year, right? And it was an attack against a pipeline infrastructure in the southeast of America that really exploited a legacy VPN that only had single-factor authentication. And what happened is this allowed threat actors to get into their business systems and start to compromise those systems. And Colonial Pipeline became very nervous that they would be able to jump from those business systems to the actual pipeline infrastructure and perpetrate an even more severe attack. And so in response to that, they shut down, they isolated those systems. And that's why we had some of the fallout and the impact that we had to begin this year as far as shortage of oil supply and things specifically on the eastern seaboard in the United States. And again, that was a single-factor VPN with single-factor authentication, right? So really not up to speed as far as security that we would expect for an oil pipeline today. The other example is, I think, equally scary, and that's the Florida water hack. And that's someone tried to hack into a water supplier to increase the amount of lye within that water. So all the public water consumers would potentially get that lye supply provided to them. And thankfully, it was caught before that actual increase of a lye 11-fold was introduced into the water supply. Thankfully, somebody did capture that. But the risk was there. It was very possible that that type of breach could have had a very physical impact on the population around this area that depended on that water every day. So it's scary stuff, right? And really, this came down to 11 credential pairs dating back to 2017 that were stolen in part of a breach, right? So 5 years ago, really, these credentials were taken and out there potentially on the dark web ready for exploit. And that's a significant challenge. And then the final example is a school district in Florida as well, the sixth largest school district. And they suffered a ransomware attack. And I bring this one into the conversation because we tend not to think of school districts and schools at large as being targets. But that has really changed recently, right? Because they don't have security to the degree that a lot of other organizations do, they are very vulnerable. They're low-hanging fruit, if you will. And that makes them a prime target now for cyber attackers. And the interesting thing about this specific breach is if you go online, you can actually see some of the exchange between the cyber attackers and the school district representatives themselves debating on the actual amount of ransom to be paid. Because the school district couldn't believe they were being asked for $40 million, right? We all know, our teachers are struggling to provide pencils and paper for everybody. The idea that they have $40 million sitting in their back pocket is ridiculous, and that's how they responded. And ultimately, the school district was not able to pay that ransom, and the hackers published something like 25,000 district files dating back to 2012. And so who knows really what's in that database, and it's out in the wild now. But it's a very scary attack for a school district like that.
I wish we had a screenshot of that. I would love to see that negotiation.
Yeah, it's definitely online. I encourage you to, because they really even say, I can't believe you think a school district could afford that. So, and really the point I'm trying to make with all of these examples, each one of these organizations had a stack of security solutions that they were depending on to protect them. And those things failed, and often that was because they were disconnected, they were too complex for the teams that were managing those tools to be effective in doing so. And we've seen that in our statistics from Pulse as well, that 62% of mid-market organizations recognize that their complexity has increased over the last 2 years. And part of this is the fallout of the COVID-19 and everybody being more distributed around the world. But some of it is just a natural complexity growth that happens as you innovate and as you expand your use of technology in your organization. And so one of the things we're going to do throughout this presentation, and actually Sean will do this here in a minute and introduce some of these stats, is share some information from an organization called Pulse. And so Pulse is a third-party research organization that specifically works with IT professional IT leaders, MSPs as well, and uses the opportunity to engage with them and get some insights into how their business is operating, what their challenges are in their specific area of expertise, and uses that to run surveys and get some case study type of feedback. And they actually work with organizations like WatchGuard to even put some of these surveys together to that specific audience. So you're getting very quality information out of these IT leaders that we can then share with you. And so we actually worked with Pulse specifically on a report with targeting MSPs to understand really how they viewed unified security and what they were looking for in a unified platform. And interestingly enough, the stat that Sean started off the presentation with about ransomware being an output of not having a unified strategy wasn't from our research report at all. In fact, that was a report that they put out to IT leaders just on ransomware. So they recognized that independent of us asking a question about unified security and priority. And so I think that means that we're really on the right track here. And so I'm excited for Sean to share some of those data points, and I'll leave it for you to do that.
Yeah, I will add to this slide just to say that there were 100 MSPs that they interviewed worldwide for this survey. So it's a broad audience, like you were talking about. Also, I believe we're making this available, I'm not sure in what format, but this is going to be made available to all the attendees today too, so they'll have access to this data directly.
That's right, yeah, we do have a PDF available with all this output for the specific MSP report, yeah. Great,
so the next couple of slides, if you want to bounce ahead, are some of these data points that we've pulled from this Pulse research. And the first is that 95% of MSPs believe their team loses productivity and efficiency by switching between application and interfaces. Something that I see resonate with the MSPs that I talk to on a daily basis. They recognize that they're losing or they're increasing costs and losing efficiency by moving and training teams on all of these different interfaces and supporting all of these different interfaces. So if you go to the next slide, I think you'll see that these same organizations, 91% of these MSPs, so it's virtually the same population, realize that in order to productize their services, they have to offer something on the cloud, and they have to do it using a single pane of glass management platform. So this next slide, I think, is probably the more interesting of these three, right? So we've got MSPs that are realizing that they have to have things online, they have to make things available by the cloud, they have to manage it by a single pane of glass. But at the same time, they have to manage, they recognize that there's complexities and costs, built into this support that they have to do for all of these different application interfaces. So 96% of MSPs, essentially every MSP that they surveyed, is in the process of consolidating vendors, either now or already doing it or considering doing it in FY22.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about vendor consolidation and how that relates to unified security in a little bit. But I think that's a very interesting stat, again, to show that consolidation is going on. People are starting to look at their portfolio and what they're offering and trying to streamline there.
So we also identified through this pulse data some misconceptions. And what's interesting to me here is from the sales side, is we're actually identifying, there's another slide later, I'll talk about this too, where we're identifying new revenue streams for these partners. And what I found was really interesting here is that bottom stat. It says only 19% of the MSPs that were surveyed include or believe sharing security insights across products and automating their back-end USP is part of providing a unified security platform, which is what we're going to spend a lot of today talking about. Yes. Is why that's so critical, right? So and there's these other product sets that are going to allow them to expand their revenue.
Absolutely. Streams. Yeah, that 19% I think is really the special sauce that we're bringing with WatchGuard. Yep. It's that the additional functionality and capability. So it's a very interesting stat, I think. All right, so ultimately what we're going to talk about today is that true unified security is more than just vendor consolidation and centralized management. There's so much more that you can do when you unify security to a single platform, especially with a platform like we're offering here at WatchGuard. And so let's start really with the challenges that these organizations and many organizations are dealing with. And the first one is scalability, right? If you can't scale your security, you're going to really have trouble making it effective, right? And so if you look at what organizations are dealing with today, it's an exploding threat surface, right? They have more environments that they've ever had to deal with for on-premise, more remote workers, more public cloud applications, hybrid type of environments. Even wireless environments have security implications today. And so those environments are increasing the threat landscape. Also on the user side, right? They have more user types that they're dealing with. Used to be simply on-site employees, then a few remote. Now we're having more security implications around contractors, the vendor representatives you're dealing with, those public users, those administrators. And each one of them has a different role and a different dynamic on how you implement security, and also could be a point of vulnerability if you're not addressing that right off the bat. And then finally, devices. And we've all talked about desktops and laptops, and IoT has really exploded, obviously, in the last decade, and VoIP phones. This is going to continue to go on. We love our technology. We're going to continue to see more and more devices become integral in how we operate our businesses and go about our lives. And again, that's more points of vulnerability that can be exploited. And ultimately, what happens is that a lot of businesses that are depending on yesterday's security platforms to defend against today's type of attacks. And they're lacking things like that seamless oversight, that comprehensive security, that shared knowledge, and the ability to automate across their different layers of security. And ultimately, that means they have fragmented oversight, or they're depending on SIM feeds that might not be full-featured and providing the type of insight that they want to those specific products. Or they're depending on things like specialized solutions from multiple vendors, and that could limit insights and compromise security efficacy across all of your different environments. And then finally, from a business perspective, these are very restrictive terms in many cases, especially for MSPs who, they have a way that they would like to operate their security practice, how they would like to monetize that security practice. And often, if they're depending on a platform or yesterday's solution, so to speak, they're very restrictive in that sense. And At WatchGuard, we really believe that you shouldn't be tied down by your security technology in trying to fit it into your business practices. You should be able to have your security technology accommodate the way you want to do business and actually enhance the way you want to do business. And that's one of our goals here with the Unified Security Platform. So let's talk about more about the Unified Security Platform and just the concept of unified security, how we really view it here at WatchGuard. And ultimately, we think unified security is all about having a scalable platform for elevating the practice of modern security delivery. And we really look at 5 areas where you can really define a unified security platform. The first is comprehensive security, right? You need to have the right solutions at the right time to accommodate all those security challenges that we've just talked about, right? So having the portfolio that's really what your clients are looking for at the time, what they need at the time, and provides the level of security that they expect is important right off the bat. Then when you talk about clarity and control, it's really all about that visibility, that control over the entire security stack, your entire environment, the ability to go to one place of truth, right, and understand what's going on in your environment at large. And when you get to the sort of the bottom layer of this slide, you start to get to that special sauce, right? And that's shared knowledge, right? This is where you can start to integrate these different layers of security to actually share information, share intelligence. So your network can tell you, hey, we just saw this occur on our network, and we believe it was triggered by this endpoint. And that information can be shared very quickly. Or your user identities can start to be associated with the actual security interactions that a device might be doing, their endpoint might be doing, right? And so that shared knowledge is something that can really improve the accuracy and speed in detecting threats. On the left-hand side, we have operational alignment, and this is really, does the platform align with how you want to run your security practice? And that's, part of that is APIs, part of that is integration, some of that is just business terms, right? Are you able to provide the consumption and payment models that your clients expect? And really the final pillar here is automation, as this really overlays all 4 of the other components too. You know, automation is so important now, both from a simplicity standpoint and ease of use standpoint. You know, we talked about mid-sized businesses and how they recognize all the complexity, right? Well, behind these mid-sized businesses is an overworked IT team that's being asked to improve their security, to manage their security, or they're looking to MSPs, hopefully, to help take some of that challenge on. And so automation is very important. If you can take away some of the manual tasks they normally might have to do, you can really save them a lot of headache. And that's what we're going to talk about when we get into automation a little bit later. So I mentioned, too, at the beginning of the presentation that, you know, it's not just about vendor consolidation. Obviously, vendor consolidation is very important. It's something that you should pursue. But we want to leave you with the idea that unifying actually enhances a vendor consolidation strategy. If you look at vendor consolidation, ultimately, it's a supply chain management strategy. You're really trying to save that capital expenditure up front. The OpEx savings isn't really what's up to the degree that's possible with a unified platform, right? That's because integration is limited. You don't get the holistic visibility across your platform, right? You're having to pull logs from different places at times. And you have multiple interfaces to learn. I mean, if you just think about your tech team that's trying to operate these products, having to learn, you know, this vendor's products, this vendor's products. And if you're familiar with the diverse set of vendors, you know how different those interfaces can be.
This is a challenge I hear all the time.
Right, that's right,
all
yeah.
the time.
Yeah, so vendor consolidation is certainly a worthwhile strategy, but we think you can do more with a unified security platform, which is ultimately a security management strategy. It's if you're prioritizing security in your MSP practice, this is the type of strategy you want to apply. And that's because it gives you a single, highly integrated platform that allows you to save both capital expenditure, we'll talk about some of those details as we get further into the presentation, but then operationally, right? You know, again, a single interface to learn for your team to be effective. You get that end-to-end visibility from your entire environment. It's highly automated, and again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. And again, that single interface to learn, I think it's a very important concept for everybody to get. So this really brings us ultimately to what WatchGuard's doing and how we've defined our unified security platform. You know, we're very excited about all the work we've done in the last 2-3 years around WatchGuard Cloud and driving all of our products into that cloud management platform, which is now truly our centralized management and visibility layer across the portfolio for all of our solutions, right? So from WatchGuard Cloud, you get all the visibility and control over network security, our secure Wi-Fi, our multi-factor authentication, our endpoint security product line. That whole portfolio you can now manage from one easy-to-understand interface. And then we have that shared knowledge layer. And so probably quite a few of you on the call are familiar with ThreatSync. This is really our XDR type layer for detecting and correlating, prioritizing advanced threats for automated or manual remediation, right? This is the idea that we can share that knowledge across the different layers to provide greater insight and find those threats earlier. And then we have our identity framework. And this is something that's unique to WatchGuard, and it's a benefit ultimately of our AuthPoint solution and the strength of our AuthPoint solution. And that's the idea that we can create a zero trust layer with flexible rules around how users and devices are operated based on risk. So you have a persistent identity that follows throughout the stack if you deploy it like this. And then with the operational alignment section, we're talking about things like hundreds of out-of-the-box integrations. We'll dig into more detail about what those integrations are. But then also things like direct access APIs, so you can get in there and do the customizations that are appropriate for your needs. And then finally, our FlexPay system, our consumption subscription models, our term-based business models, is something that's very compelling, I think, for a lot of our partners and how they operate their business, and encourages, I think, to work with WatchGuard more. So I think that's certainly a strength of the platform overall. And again, automation, we've talked about the automation core now for several years, but this is a priority for how WatchGuard builds all of our solutions in our platform. Automation is a key concern. It's a key priority. We want solutions that as much as possible can operate in near autonomy to help us minimize cyber attacks, reduce wasted time, make your jobs easier ultimately. So that's a big priority for WatchGuard going forward. And so if I sort of bring you back to that diagram and sort of map those solutions in a different way, you see on a comprehensive security standpoint, we have a complete portfolio today of endpoint, multi-factor authentication, network security solutions, all available for protecting environments, devices, and users, right? So wherever you need to provide that security, we really have a solution that can get you there. From a clarity and control standpoint, obviously extremely proud of all the progress we've made around WatchGuard Cloud. It's a tremendous tool for managing your entire WatchGuard security stack, being able to report from that single pane of glass. And that's something we continually add features and capabilities around. We'll dig into some of those most recent additions in later slides. Shared knowledge, again, that identity framework we talked about, ThreatSync, the correlation, those ideas. And then operational alignment, our FlexPay, our API access, and integrations. And so one of the things that I think is very interesting about all of this is that as we've sort of gone out and dealt with the analyst communities and met with the analyst community, they've really resonated with this message, and it's aligned very much with what they're hearing from their MSP audiences, right? So when one of our engagements last year, the analyst really brought these 5 terms to us, which to me is a bit of semantics when you look at what we've just talked about, right? And that's breadth and relevance of the portfolio. And that's what I said earlier. Do you have the right solutions to accommodate that client that you have in front of you, right? And then ease of administration. Is it easy enough for that specific MSP to operate and operate effectively? We think we accomplished that with WatchGuard Cloud very well. Do you enable the S in the MSSP, right? Do you enable an MSP to add a security practice to what they're doing?
MSSP.
Yes, that's harder to say that. Yeah, that's my favorite word on the slide or sentence there. But yeah, so things like the identity framework, that ThreatSync capability, they do improve your efficacy as a team in delivering security. Same thing with automation, that process automation can simplify things, can take away those manual tasks. Very, very important. And then finally, the business model, flexibility. It's something that I think all MSPs are concerned with. Can they operate the business in the way that they want to? And so, again, this aligns very well with what the analyst community is hearing from their MSP targets. And so we think really WatchGuard's at the right place at the right time when it comes to this unified security approach. And so, throughout 2021, we've really advanced our unified security platform. And that's what we wanted to bring to you guys today, ultimately, is that, we want to show you how we've expanded our capabilities, our platform, and really where we're going next. So our future releases are really going to elevate what we're doing today. You're going to get a taste of it, but this is not all that's possible. And I'm very excited to start showing you even more as we go forward.
Stephen, what a great way to get us started. Some really sobering statistics in the beginning there, some great stories, but it very much demonstrates the value and honestly the need for the unified platform. So we're really excited to hear more about that as we go. We're actually going to stay with you, Stephen, because it's time to talk about clarity and control. So whenever you're ready to walk us through that segment, let's hear more about the WatchGuard Cloud.
Sure, thank you, Katie. So yeah, obviously we're very proud of all the effort and the work that's gone into WatchGuard Cloud. It's been something we've been working on for 3-4 years now, bringing all these products into this platform to give you that centralized control over your entire WatchGuard security stack. And we're very happy to say that all of our solutions could be managed from WatchGuard Cloud today. It is ultimately that centralized platform and provides the central authority for security policy management, dissemination, and enforcement. So from this single platform, you can establish your policies and push them out on your users, your devices, your networks, wherever you need that policy to go. Really empowers your team to do that. And then from an MSP perspective, there's some unique characteristics about WatchGuard Cloud. Things like our multi-tenant, multi-tier architecture, right? The idea that you can do zero-touch deployment for network security, MFA, and endpoint security. You don't have to send someone on site to deploy those or have a device sent to you to actually deploy those things. We have solutions that can help minimize alert fatigue and help you stay ahead of threats with automation, bubble up the most important facts that you should be aware of. And then when we talk about WatchGuard Cloud from a clarity standpoint, really a visibility standpoint, it's important that we, again, highlight those security issues, those issues that you should be aware of in your environment, whether there are vulnerabilities, whether there are active attacks. So with WatchGuard Cloud, you can easily identify those actionable security trends. You can monitor security efficacy across the board. You can also generate different reports, whether they're business, compliance. We have compliance templates if you need to do a PCI as an example, or HIPAA type of compliance report. We have templates for that. And then we also have really powerful visualization tools. If you were familiar with some of the things that we had done with Dimension, there's a lot of that goodness that's been brought into the platform that make it very easy for you to understand where your policies are being used, where your vulnerabilities may be, what the threat profile looks like, and presents it in a way that's more than just log data. It's something that you can very quickly understand and your team can very quickly understand. It's a summary view, ultimately. And then from the same view, it gives you the ability to drill down, right? So if you wanted to learn a little bit more, hey, this looks like something I should, vulnerability maybe I should learn more about, you can dig into a deeper layer and understand in more detail what's going on. And so that's a powerful capability of WatchGuard Cloud's visibility. And so now let's talk a little bit about what we've done for WatchGuard Cloud really in the last 6 to 8 months when it comes to advancing this solution in the unified security platform. And one of the big ones is organizing, the ability to organize and secure accounts with account groups. And this is something that we had on the endpoint product line, people who are familiar with that from potentially the Panda days and in our early integration. They really liked that feature, and it's something that we prioritized because of that to bring to the other products into WatchGuard Cloud and the unified security platform at large. And so with account groups, you can quickly organize accounts into folders based on a customer's characteristics, right? So you can enforce those segregation of duties. You can create groups even with existing accounts. And quickly apply policies to those groups of accounts, right? So you don't have to go in and individually apply policies. Really, if you have simple templates, you can apply them very, very easily.
Quickly, yep.
Yeah. And then you can also use account groups to assign operator permissions. So you can restrict access for operators with like help desk as an example as an operator or an auditor role. So you can control a little bit what they can see and what they can get to and what they can potentially mess up, so to speak, within that tool. And then another thing that we've had in WatchGuard Cloud that I think is extremely important, especially for the MSP audience, is the ability to demonstrate value to your customers. Ultimately, at WatchGuard, we win when our MSPs win, right? When your business succeeds, that's how we succeed, and that's the way we like it, quite frankly. And so one of the things that we've built right into WatchGuard Cloud is the ability to provide aggregated reports and logs and provide simultaneous account access for partners and customers. But you can also do things like add logos and contact information to those reports and those things that you put out. Even our secure access portal solution on the Firebox, you can skin that to be your brand, so your internal employees have that familiarity when they're logging in, and can even recognize that they're in the right place when they're trying to log into some of their applications. And the ability to do things like add your own contact information is really important when you're trying to point people to your support teams, right? And so that's something that, again, we've prioritized in WatchGuard Cloud and as part of our unified security platform. And we really think it helps to boost your trusted relationship with your clients.
I hear about this quite a bit. Is this something that on your side of the business do you hear this request come up quite a bit? Because I hear it all the time. Branding. Yeah. How do we make it look and feel the way that my teams are expecting?
Absolutely, yeah. We certainly have partners who have very strong brands already, and they want to lead with that brand, and that makes a ton of sense for us, right? We don't want to get in the way of that. So that's certainly something that we're happy to accommodate.
That's what drove the prioritization.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I hear it quite a bit.
Yeah. The other thing that we've succeeded in doing this year, and it's very exciting if you're a longtime WatchGuard partner, and that's bringing the centralized Firebox management into WatchGuard Cloud, right? So now we have WatchGuard Cloud, all of that policy management. You can configure your entire network. You can do your zero-touch deployment right from WatchGuard Cloud. You can automate reporting to those stakeholders, so those reports I just talked about, you can schedule them to actually go out. You can schedule firmware upgrades, make sure those devices are all up and running and have the right firmware for that you want to be running in that specific network. And again, your ability to lead with your brand in some of those reporting things. So we're very happy to have brought Firebox management into WatchGuard Cloud. We continue to add functionality around management within WatchGuard Cloud on the Fireboxes. And we'll talk about some of those in the next couple slides. And so, you know, if you attended our partner conferences this summer, we talked a lot about the unified security platform conceptually and some of the things from a roadmap perspective, specifically in the technical PKO that we did this summer. So I want to share with you a couple of the ways that we've executed on that mission since we spoke to you last. And the first one is, you know, we've now added system actions for FireCluster, right? So if you have a FireCluster, you can upgrade all the firmware for that entire cluster. You can reboot. You can back up those devices. We have Firebox V and Firebox Cloud now. When we first launched management in the cloud, that was only the physical appliances. Now we have both our virtual and our cloud solutions there. And then configuration differences, I think, is a very compelling tool here. The idea that you can compare two Firebox configurations and see those versions and see what's changed between them. So you get that deployment history. You get a clear view of what has changed. You can see what's been added, what's been deleted, what's been updated. And you can even see who did that, right? What the user was or who the operator was who did that. And so that's, I think, a compelling feature as you're trying to manage your policies and your controls over your Firebox. And then from a Wi-Fi perspective, right, we've brought the Wi-Fi solution into WatchGuard Cloud, and very happy to say that we now have management and deployment, right? You can have accelerated customer and onboarding with your ability to deploy these devices. You have templates for easy deployment in your configurations. You have authentication domains that can be shared across the WatchGuard portfolio. You have the ability to manage your radio and SSID as well. You have reporting and visibility as well, so your service provider level alerting and device status. You can track all your connected clients. You get your firmware versions, your bandwidth usage, all those insights that you'd expect over your access points where they're deployed. You still have the ability to diagnose and troubleshoot your network, find where there's those connectivity issues, get that simple visualization so you can identify those things quickly, find those failures or anomalies potentially that are occurring in those clients trying to connect. And then finally, we still have that captive portal capability, which is very important for a lot of clients who, they want to provide a means for somebody to log in that shows their brand. As an example, you have a coffee cup here of a restaurant potentially where, they're providing Wi-Fi to their clients. And again, they want to reinforce their own brand. And so we give you the ability as an MSP to provide that value with Wi-Fi in WatchGuard Cloud now.
Coffee cup, I love that.
And finally, endpoint modules, right? So we're very excited to have brought the endpoint product line into WatchGuard Cloud. But we also have brought in a number of the modules. And we'll talk about some of these as we go forward in the presentation. But one of the ones that I think is so important from just a clarity and control standpoint is the advanced reporting tool. And that's the idea that you can generate intelligence and IT insights and pinpoint those attacks from your endpoint security tools specifically. And it delivers real-time insights into day-to-day behavior of your applications, your network, and your users. So this is just another great visualization and reporting tool that we've brought into WatchGuard Cloud with our advanced reporting tool that give you more control and insight in those endpoints. Back to you, Katie.
Thanks so much, Stephen. There's been a lot that we've covered today. I think so far we've gone over so much, and there is still plenty more to come within the next hour and a half. So for now, let's take a 15-minute break. It's just a break, though, so please don't drop. We want to make sure everyone who's been with us so far to get that full sales certification. So please plan on meeting back here in 15 minutes, and we'll pick up this discussion around comprehensive security. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I hope you were able to grab a refill of whatever you're sipping on, maybe stretch, get a quick peek of that email during the break, because now we're going to jump back in with a topic that is vital to everyone watching, and that's comprehensive security. Sean Banahan, Director of Sales here in the U.S., is once again going to get us started by covering the opportunity to add additional revenue streams to your business by expanding your WatchGuard selling portfolio for a complete approach to your overall security offering. So, Sean, take it away.
Thanks so much, Katie. I think you've really said it. This is the other slide I referenced that I like so much. And it's really because the stat itself really talks about how we can support our partners by giving them new revenue streams to sell. The stat itself says that less than 50% of MSPs offer multi-factor authentication and identity management. And those are two critical pieces of our solution in the MFA product. It's one of the things we've seen recently is government mandates on this, and so I hear about it quite a bit. It's a key component of the product. So,
yeah, I think multi-factor authentication really should be table stakes for every client out there, and it's a bit surprising that there isn't more MSPs offering multi-factor authentication, considering how much in demand it is and how much it's needed today, right? And so it really is an opportunity, I think, with our portfolio to differentiate around what you're offering to your clients based on that research anyway. And so
we've had multi-factor authentication now for 3 years,
yeah.
Right? And it's Sean, becoming more and more part of the conversation.
And that's a really good point. To our viewers, there's a lot of individuals that didn't know that WatchGuard Cloud was really first built around AuthPoint. We found that was a really important key piece to have within the unified security platform, and we started it with that. And I think that's where the identity framework came from.
Something you had mentioned on a slide earlier was talking about, I don't remember how you phrased it, but it's the maturity of the products, right? So this is really a culmination of all of these products that are really, they've been around for a while. A lot of the resellers, especially, some of the resellers that are newer to WatchGuard don't realize that we sell more than we do and that we have for a long time.
Yeah, it's just not about those beautiful red fireboxes anymore, Sean.
Also in the context of the identity framework and how Zero Trust connects to that. Zero Trust is now U.S. mandate, right?
Yeah.
And it's something really interesting in the way that the mandate is formulating, just in Section 1 saying that incremental increases to security will not bring us to where we want to be.
That's right.
And in Section 3, they start talking about exactly what we've been discussing here, making things work together and making data that is generated by security points working together to implement a Zero Trust architecture.
Yeah, good point, Rudy.
Yeah, so we think we have a very strong portfolio beyond just a multi-factor authentication solution, lots of opportunity for you to really differentiate your security practice around the WatchGuard solutions. And obviously, you're very familiar at this point with the WatchGuard Firebox, but we're always advancing that solution. You'll see advances in things like SD-WAN. You'll see new security layers being added over time. We have the ability to do intrusion prevention, all the anti-malware capabilities, full-featured artificial intelligence built into that platform. And so obviously one of the big strengths of our portfolio. Then we have our Wi-Fi product line. We have Wi-Fi 6 now. We have WPA3 encryption. You can diagnose, monitor, report across your Wi-Fi. It's all in WatchGuard Cloud. We also have IKE-v2 VPN and a wrap solution that Nick will talk about a little bit later. Our endpoint security solution obviously brought all the solutions into WatchGuard Cloud now, very exciting. But you have really a full-featured set of endpoint solutions that you can use really for whatever client you have in front of you, even from the basic needs for a signature-based sort of AV solution all the way up to advanced endpoint detection and response solutions and capabilities, as well as all those modules. And Rui will talk about some of that going forward. But we also have a very strong position around user security, and this really ultimately starts with our multi-factor authentication solution in AuthPoint. Number of capabilities that we're going to be introducing to that solution around how you can better establish identity and use more metrics like geolocation and things to establish that identity and strengthen your identity. We also have a portfolio solution here, or a bundling, if you will, called Passport, right? The ability to get all of your user-focused security services for those users who maybe travel a lot, or your workforce at large who's more remote, to give them all the security they need to go where they need so they can have that security as they travel around.
One SKU.
Yeah, under one SKU, right? It's easy to buy, easy to sell, right? And then from a remote access standpoint, just breaking this out, obviously it's been extremely critical in the last 2 years as more people have worked from home. And so we've brought a lot of capabilities as far as enabling remote access in a very secure fashion to our portfolio. And we really think this broad swath, obviously it's not a comprehensive list, and it's certainly not a list of where we're going and what's possible with the unified security platform. But it's simply to say, today you have a lot of security value in the platform available to you, ready to be sold and accommodate your client needs. And so we'll talk a little bit about some of the solutions and some of the things that we've rolled out in more detail. And before we really get into that discussion, I think one of the stats that our Threat Labs team here at WatchGuard pushed out that I think really drives home the importance of things like a WatchGuard firewall is that 91.5% of malware today arrives over encrypted connections, right? And so if you followed our internet security report over the last few years, you'll probably have noticed that stat ticks up over time. I believe it was around 60% around this time last year, so a dramatic increase in the use of encrypted traffic. Why is that happening? Because from a cyber attacker standpoint, you can put malware in that encrypted traffic and sneak it by a firewall if it's not being inspected. It's a low effort evasion technique, essentially. And so that really is why it's so important that you have the latest and greatest when it comes to your network security infrastructure, that you're able to accommodate the traffic types that you're actually encountering, that you're able to actually inspect that traffic to catch that 91.5 potential amount of malware that's coming into your environment. And so, from a WatchGuard perspective, what we've done in the last year is introduce our new mid-range firewall appliances, our Firebox M290 all the way up through the 690. And so obviously these improve dramatically on our performance, which is to be expected from additional appliances. But we've also brought new capabilities and features, things like bringing our modularity feature, the idea that you can add modules into the physical appliance to expand your network or customize your network as needed. This is something that we've introduced across the board. Obviously, we have specifically increased our performance around encrypted traffic inspection. It was a big priority when we designed and built those appliances.
And Stephen, that's actually a really important number that's on the data sheet that's on the screen right now. That HTTPS plus IPS is actually the content inspection with IPS also in there. So those are some great numbers. I mean, shoot, I wish I could get an internet connection like that back at my house, and our firewalls are able to do that with that content inspection feature. So really take advantage of that to make sure that you're blocking that malware that's hiding in those encrypted connections.
Yeah. And around the modularity topic too, T80, we also released an LTE module. And so if you're considering doing maybe SD-WAN or just want that redundant LTE connection, we have a module now available for that T80 that you can plug right in, and excited about that as well.
Before we move off this slide, this is I'm going to take us off the rails just for a moment here because it's interesting. This is a brand new product set that we've released, a brand new set of boxes we've released just recently, right? They've been out now on the market for a couple of months only. But inventory, this is something that pops up in almost certainly all the conversations I've had this week, last week, and the week before, I think. But these boxes are available. We're shipping them now. I know that all of my partners are asking, not just here, but in other areas, do you have it? Can you ship it? And we do. So
Yeah, what's the price? Okay, cool, but do you have it, right?
Right.
And our product management team has done a great job making sure that we have this product, and not just our firewalls, but also our brand new Wi-Fi 6 access points. So we have the Wi-Fi 5 access points, but really it's all about Wi-Fi 6 within the unified security platform. And I'm here today to tell you guys about the 3 new access points that we have, but also the 2 that we have coming up on the roadmap. So the first new one we have is the AP130. It's going to be a low density AP 2x2. The second new AP that we have is the AP330, which is going to be a 2x2 radio AP, but it's going to have that security radio so we can do more with monitoring your wireless airspace from known threats that could be within it. The AP430CR is a ruggedized IP67 access point. It is mainly to be used in an outdoor environment, but also those ruggedized environments where temperature might be a problem. One of the nice things about it is it does have external antennas. You can have up to 6 on there. So that gives you the ability to direct your Wi-Fi signal where you need it, so you don't have to necessarily use an omnidirectional antenna on everything. Now, when we talk about other access points to complete our portfolio, as you guys know, we've got 5 today on the Wi-Fi 5 platform. We do hope to have 5 within the Wi-Fi 6. So obviously the 2 models that we're missing, any guesses? We're missing the wall plate, which will be out a little bit later in 2022, but the big one is gonna be the AP432. That'll be a 4x4 access point indoor. And I'm happy to announce, actually during this live stream, that we're going to be looking for beta testers soon. So I would really encourage you to reach out to your channel account manager and let them know that you want to sign up for that. And if we have one to throw your way and you're willing to test it with us, we'd love to get some feedback on that. Now, speaking of our access points, we released a new feature earlier this year called the Remote Access Point, or RAP. And I'm not talking about the music, I'm talking about the feature within the access point. And this is a really cool feature that a lot of individuals were looking for. And what this does is it allows us to extend your network to wherever it might be. It might be at a pop-up tent where you might have a medical clinic. It might be at a trade show. Are we going to get to do trade shows again?
I don't know.
No,
Gosh.
this is the closest we're getting, I think.
Yeah,
This
so
is it. This is it.
but the point is this access point goes wherever you need it, and your wireless users that are connecting to that access point are automatically connected to a VPN. No more opening up a client, installing a client, and no more hearing from the end user that the VPN's not connecting because, hey, we've got a hardware-to-hardware VPN. The nice piece with the remote access point is it's supported on all of the Wi-Fi 6 models, all 5 of them, and it's even still supported on some of our Wi-Fi 5 models as well. So essentially managed all from either platform on Wi-Fi 5 or Wi-Fi 6, and really allows you to extend those networks wherever you need them.
I think it's such a great feature, too, for even a home office environment. You have people using their Wi-Fi and moving about. They don't have to think about connecting to that VPN. They just open up their laptop. It connects right to it. Super ease of use, and it takes the pain out of it for that user. So I think it's a powerful opportunity.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my more favorite features with our access points, and especially that we saw during COVID. You could send an access point to a customer. There you go. Yep. They've got an office that's set up remotely, and now they're online. And speaking of remote access, I think we beefed up our access portal, correct, Stephen?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, a big request from a lot of the partners and customers that we've dealt with over the years has been, specifically around COVID-19 recently, has been, remote access portal sessions. How many can you use? And really expanding the capacity to support more remote access sessions. And so we're very happy to announce that we have expanded the maximum amount of remote access sessions across the board on our physical as well as our virtual Firebox solutions. So we've really extended and increased the amount of sessions that you can have specifically for those remote use case opportunities.
Yeah, I love talking about this. It's kind of like a clientless VPN, right? Mm-hmm. It's so fun to be able to hop on, via remote desktop or protect this portal with our multi-factor authentication solution, which is one of the out-of-box integrations that we have. It really just brings multi-factor and remote access that much easier to our end users' fingertips.
Absolutely.
And now for something completely different.
All right.
It's your turn.
Tell us, Rui.
So let's drill down to and move to the endpoint. So we want to bring I want to bring a perspective into unification and what we've been discussing here this morning that ties into not only looking at a unified platform or a unified architecture from a management standpoint, from a platform standpoint, from a cloud standpoint, but how you do it in the agent. And there's a lot, another data point, or as we like to call them, fun facts.
Fun facts.
Another fun fact, which is not funny at all, is, and it comes from an analyst report on 2020, average number of devices or agents deployed to devices for security features. You know how much is that? The average number? 10.2 agents. So in 2020, corporate devices had an average of 10.2 different software components, different software agents just for security features. And we're so proud that we bring the unification not only to the platform itself, but to the structure of the endpoint security agent, with consequences that are not only technical, but commercial as well. So how does that work? When you deploy the agent to a managed endpoint, and we're looking at the offering that started, like you mentioned, with the next generation endpoint antivirus-based product or next generation antivirus endpoint protection platform product, EDR and a combination of both. When you deploy an agent to a managed endpoint, you're actually deploying the whole thing. You're deploying an agent that determines and customizes the security posture you want to have in the endpoint and its associated services with basically licensing. So what are the technical consequences to that? You're reducing, obviously, the number of agents, and with that, you're reducing complexity, but you're also reducing points of failure, and you're increasing performance and reducing footprint. That's a key aspect. But it also allows you to customize, like I mentioned, allows you to customize the offer. So we start with the base antivirus, next generation antivirus with support for Windows, Mac OS, Linux, and Android, and very, very soon in the next quarter for iOS, we are releasing our iOS agent. But that same agent can switch over to an EDR delivery. And that EDR delivery brings two core services, which are the base of our endpoint security model. One controls applications. The file vector controls by fundamentally controlling the unknown. Endpoints that we protect suspend temporarily for a matter of minutes typically, applications that are yet uncategorized, yet unknown until they are classified by us as a service. So we bring the ability to implement zero trust at the endpoint layer because we automate the process of classifying those applications. There are no approval processes involved.
You know what that reminds me of? That you're guilty until the platform proves that you're innocent.
Exactly. Because
Isn't that brilliant? Hey, marketing.
I'll write it down. I don't have a pen
Okay,
and
I just
paper.
want credit for it. That's
Okay.
all.
and you know,
Appreciate that.
It's on camera now, so you get it.
there's another problem which is essential that it solves. So we keep hearing in the market vendors talking about rollback features. Okay, if our knowledge of a given threat, we still don't know what it is, it fails, we go down to a level where we have technology, AI, machine learning, we detect anomalous behaviors. If that fails, we have been performing shadow copies of the files and we give them back to you. So that also assumes that at some point you're gonna break the chain even after the bad guys start doing their thing. You know what? Another dirty little secret, another data point, another fun fact. 70% of all ransomware attacks include some form of data exfiltration. So much for your rollbacks, right? You get your files back, everything's back up and running, all is good. Wrong. Your data is out there, and the ransom will include publicizing that data, selling that data to a third party. So before you know it, you'll have to evaluate how and just be lucky that that data isn't that valuable. So we believe that we need to go back to the beginning, to not allowing, until proven guilty, right? Not allowing yet unknown, unsanctioned applications to run. And it's a really easy premise. I mean, whose admin would want unknown applications to run in an environment they control? Well, execution and delivering that, automating that, that's a different story. That's why antivirus products have been around for the last 20 years. Because if this was so easy to do this kind of zero trust approach or manage allow listing, well, we've been out of business in the antivirus world for decades now, right? So we go back to controlling the unknown and addressing the file vector with the Zero Trust Application Service, but then there's another perspective, which is when we only allow good applications to run in the environments that we protect, what can happen? Well, a lot can happen. Every day we see goodware applications that are weaponized, living off the land attacks, malware attacks that have nothing to do with files. They're malwareless, they're fileless, and that's what we're worried about. That's the other side of the coin. So what happens in environments that we protect with our Zero Trust Application Service and where only goodware runs? We have threat hunting. We'll build a baseline that has to do with our study and our building along the time of users, user behavior modeling, patterns. We're looking for compromised credentials. We're looking for lateral movement. And we will use our team to confirm indicators of attack and issue the alert fatigue point to issue only confirmed indicators of attack and to warn the security team or the administration team on our partners' end, on our end users, and to take action in case mitigating that early stage of an attack requires changes, system admin changes, or even, depending on the type of early stage of the attack, taking action with our agent itself. The interesting thing about that mid-EDR tier is that we can deliver both these services and a set of other technology in the stack alongside an existing antivirus product.
Wow.
So you don't necessarily need to transition from an existing next generation antivirus or traditional antivirus. If you're not ready for it, you can just add this agent and have those two services kicking in. So you'll have advanced protection for the file-based and for the malwareless, living off the land, fileless vector with threat hunting. EPDR represents the combination of both. The moment you're ready to move forward or to do the switch, we will configure the agent, the same agent, I keep stressing this, to just to start all the services that are associated with the integration between our next generation EPP and the EDR services. And there we go into the commercial consequence. The commercial transition between these products, because we have a unique agent architecture, is seamless. We activate licensing of any of these base products. The transitions between each of these base products is seamless. It does not imply the installation of any additional agents, just one agent. It does not imply a reboot. It does not even imply the restart of any system services. So this architecture, single agent architecture, is, I believe, and you will agree, Stephen, a key component of the unification beyond the management platform. There is an additional component to this if you're doing domain level protection, and above all, if you want to integrate and harmonize your DNS protection policies and your content filtering that you're doing in the Firebox, you will definitely want to add DNS WatchGo to facilitate that integration. But the modularity, we can extend the modularity of the agent to two additional modules. You talked about the advanced reporting tool, which is the prime matter, is based actually on the prime matter we leverage and utilize to deliver these services as features that are the Zero Trust Application Service and the threat hunting. But we can extend also the agent with two additional modules. Patch management. Start with assessing for the operating system and for 100 third parties, even look up by CVE and know where you are, which known patches for known published CVEs, vulnerabilities are available for deployment, and just start there. So I cannot stress enough when we keep talking about this, Nick. In every evaluation, in every of your POCs, just activate a trial of patch management, in fact, of any other modules.
Yeah.
Put it on my tab. I mean,
That is definitely
Right?
best practice in any trial.
because
Or any,
when you activate
Yeah.
it, you are not touching anything,
That's
but
right.
you are generating data that's not only important to sell, it's important to know the status of where your client is and where your management of your client is. And you can activate this for any given instance, but it all starts with an assessment, and then you move on to fix the problem. So you can approve patches, deploy them immediately if there's an immediate need to do so, even by isolating the endpoints, the affected endpoints. In the meantime, you can schedule the deployment of those approved patches, or you can be highly proactive, if that's the way to go, in implementing patch management deployment tasks and patch management windows that run on automated criteria. And the criteria have to do with your choice of the criticality of the patches that you want to automatically approve, and even your choice of software or vendors amongst the list of hundreds of vendors that we support. So assessment, the ability to approve and deploy on demand or a scheduled fashion, or to be highly proactive with patch management tasks that run in an automated fashion. And last but certainly not least, full encryption. Our compliance tool.
Big one.
Our partners love it because it's a compliance tool above all. So we leverage BitLocker, and we make the management of BitLocker integrated within the single agent and within the single platform, or the unified security platform. And we host those recovery keys. We allow implementing or allow deploying policies that make sure that the full encryption policies are set for hard disks and for removable storage. And we report real time, because when that device is lost or stolen, it's not about, and I keep hearing this, it's not about doing your job with making sure those devices are encrypted, is that you need to prove that
The
your job is
auditors.
done. The auditors.
Pesky auditors.
Exactly. So that is endpoint security and modules. Over to you, Katie.
Thank you so much, panel. That was such a great and interesting discussion. Up next, I'm going to bring back Stephen Helm, Senior Product Marketing Manager, to walk us through updates to the core products that bring all the layers of security together, including ThreatSync and AuthPoint. The topic of shared knowledge is especially relevant today as more of your customers are looking to secure cyber insurance policies and need solutions like AuthPoint to do so. So, without further ado, Stephen, welcome back. Sean, welcome back. Thanks so much for being here. Go ahead and take it away.
Thanks very much, Katie. Thanks, everybody, again, for hanging out with us. And one of the questions that came in, and I also encourage you to keep asking questions in the chat. We'll get to them in the Q&A section. But, one of the first questions that I noticed came in was, what's really the benefit out of ease of use, outside of ease of use for a single platform approach? Doesn't that single platform approach potentially introduce opportunities for vulnerability? And ultimately, again, it comes back to the special sauce, right? It's not just about ease of use. It's about the efficacy improvements that can happen when you really integrate your different security layers, right? And so the way we're going about that here at WatchGuard is really through our ThreatSync solution when it comes to that correlation of telemetry across the stack. And our vision and our goal with ThreatSync is to save the security teams and save IT teams time in how they're actually detecting solutions, how they're identifying what's a threat, what they should spend more time investigating, how they're actually building policies around automation of some of these things. This is critically important. And so, ThreatSync is a cloud solution that allows us to really feed all the telemetry from our different security layers into that single platform in the cloud, right? And so today we're really providing endpoint telemetry and correlation and network telemetry correlation. But our vision is really to extend this throughout the portfolio, right? So bringing in Wi-Fi logs as an example, bringing in some of those data points from the Wi-Fi network, your airspace, about who's logging in. Maybe it's a device that's not allowed or not expected, or maybe this device is using the wrong credentials, something like that. Endpoint telemetry, obviously we talked about all the great information that we can get out of the endpoint product line today. That telemetry is so valuable when you combine it with things like the network security information, as well as what we're going to start releasing very soon here, and that's the authentication capabilities and associating those data points with all of that other telemetry. So you can associate the threat potentially with the user and really get a full visibility into that whole story of potentially of infection and vulnerability. And so ultimately, ThreatSync is an integrated platform for delivering XDR type of approaches, right? And again, back to that question about why the single platform approach. This is why people are latching on to XDR in the market, because they recognize how important it is today, given the complexity of their environment, to have that data sharing across their security layers. So ThreatSync, the way it works, is actually collects and correlates and then performs an analysis. Part of that analysis is using artificial intelligence to identify what should be pushed to triage and what we should spend more time investigating, and how to actually assign a specific threat score. So for a team who's trying to identify threats within an environment, it's very helpful in the fact that it presents you a threat score as well. Not just for an endpoint event, not just for a network event, but actually we'll combine those two events and say, okay, we saw something bad on the endpoint and on the network, and they're related to each other. Therefore, we should push this at a higher score. Yeah, right. And so it gives you a very strong level of confidence that you should look more into that or respond to that. And so ThreatSync today, we're using hundreds of billions of events that we analyze. We have all kinds of binaries that we're looking at. We have zero-day malware that we block and track. And we continue to feed more and more data points into ThreatSync and expand those integration points going forward. So it's a very exciting solution for us, and I think something that partners are really excited about too. And then really the other big component here when it comes to shared knowledge is the WatchGuard identity framework. And I think we've talked a lot about the authentication product line. I said earlier that I really feel like multi-factor authentication is table stakes for any business that's serious about security today. And so our identity framework is really about taking that value of multi-factor authentication, that strong confidence you get in an identity, and bringing that value to other layers of your security stack. And so what this allows you to do is really apply risk-based user management, right? So you can understand, hey, this user is connecting from a network that they're not normally on, so maybe we want to have them go through this extra multi-factor authentication challenge just so we know it's them. Or alternatively, they're connecting from the network we're very familiar with. We don't want to beat them over the head with having to authenticate and quickly hit their push authentication over and over again. Authentication is a fine balance between how easy it is for that user to use and the security. And so just the idea that we can use our solution and drive the identity really through your network, through your Wi-Fi, and even eventually into our endpoint product lines, have that consistent user identity throughout the stack, I think it's a very powerful tool, but it's also something that's very unique to WatchGuard and how we're able to build a unified security platform. Really, there's many vendors out there that offer the multi-factor and the network security and the endpoint all in a single portfolio, let alone integrate them. So I think we're in a good spot in that sense.
This is a part of that 19% that MSPs aren't offering now.
That's right, yeah.
Right. So I keep going back to revenue streams and opportunities for our MSP partners to take the lead and build more revenue.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly right. It gives you more opportunity to get in front of your clients and show them really what their security profile looks like in a more detailed picture of that. Yeah, absolutely. And so now we'll dig a little bit into some of the ways that we're delivering on this vision, both from ThreatSync and the identity framework. And the first one is the integration of Authpoint and the Firebox. That's I think a necessary first step for having this platform. It's a natural fit to integrate those two solutions because more and more people are using their Fireboxes to facilitate things like remote VPN type connections to allow their remote users, their distributed workforce now, to actually connect in back to the network. And so they're going to go through that Firebox anyway. So it makes sense for us to have that integration. And one of the things that we've done with this integration is now you don't even need to stand up a separate Radius server. You can actually use your Firebox as the Radius server today, which can save you quite a bit on the actual infrastructure cost for standing up multi-factor authentication in an environment. It's just a simpler way to go about deploying it too for a lot of organizations. And the AuthPoint gateway is only required to sync users from an LDAP database, right? So, it's a very simplified integration that gives you really powerful security, specifically around some of those remote connectivity use cases. And so, I mentioned a little bit earlier some of the features that we're going to start rolling out around AuthPoint. And one of the things that we've developed is this risk framework and risk-based user profiles. And that's going beyond looking at simple user credentials, username, password, or even did they accept this push challenge from their multi-factor authentication solution, right? It starts to consider other variables that can help us identify that that's the correct user and prevent some of the phishing type of attacks that we've started to see pop up in the past couple of years. You have the ability, as I mentioned earlier, to understand the network location that person is connecting from, and then, again, adjust your security depending on your familiarity with that network. You can do time scheduling around how policy is applied. So maybe you don't want employees at 9 o'clock at night being able to access certain things within your network. You can have that so they're isolated from doing that until normal business hours, if that's like something you would like to do. You can do geofencing, so that authentication has to happen within a certain region. You can do geokinetics, so if the authentication and challenge and actual acceptance occurs over a long distance, you can catch that. You can evaluate the computer risk with bringing in some of those variables from the endpoint security product line, and then device risk as well. And so this is really the vision for where we're going with AuthPoint and the risk framework, and how we can actually apply more information and more details to establishing that user identity. And so it gives you powerful methods to configure authentication policies. You can do group syncs with Active Directory groups. You can use resources per policy. So if there's certain resources within your environment you want to limit to specific groups or specific users, you can do that here. And then you have those risk-based policies, those network location, those time schedule, geolocation. And so, I talked about this at a high level, but really that time scheduling provides, a tremendous amount of value when you have very, perhaps diverse user bases, user types within your organization that maybe you do want to have more control over the time that they have to access things, right? Because specifically you're in security and it's a weekend, maybe you don't want to be having a call about somebody, a vulnerability or somebody getting access to something they shouldn't on a Saturday, right? So if you just eliminate that as an opportunity with something like the time schedule policy, which can allow you to restrict their access based on their time. And so some of the geographic policy controls, these are ones that we're excited to be releasing here. The geofencing one here coming out very shortly in Q4, and then we'll be releasing geokinetics as well as geocorrelation. And so geofence is all about creating policies based on the countries where you do business. So you don't want to allow authentications and things from countries like potentially Russia if you're not operating there, if you have no business there, which a lot of our mid-market, smaller businesses, they really don't have any operation there. And it seems like, well, why would you need to block an authentication from Russia? But we've actually seen instances where people have spoofed authentication challenges from places, from other countries and things, and people just accept those challenges because they don't really know any better. They don't know where they're coming from. And then you look at something like geokinetics, and this really prevents the impossible locations opportunity. And I have this little map here. If you look at somebody authenticating at 9 a.m. in Seattle, and then their second authentication is at 9:30 a.m. in my hometown of San Diego, probably not the same person unless they know time travel, something like
plane ride.
The Concorde hasn't flown in a while, but even that would be an impressive time, I think, for that. So, again, a very compelling feature, I think, to prevent some of those more advanced phishing attacks, spear phishing attacks against high-value targets within an organization. And then finally, the geocorrelation. And this is, again, that idea that you have to have your endpoint device that you're trying to log into, as well as your authentication device, your mobile phone, have to be in the same place, have to be proximal to each other. And this is, again, another prevention of some of those more advanced phishing attacks that we're seeing. It's not uncommon now to have people approach a phishing attempt with all kinds of different vehicles. They might call you on the telephone to say, hey, I'm this person in your company. I just had to push something for your authentication to do blah, blah, blah. They catch you in a moment that you're not expecting that call. You might just press Yes, and let somebody right through the front door of your business. So these are the type of tools that we're introducing to help prevent those type of attacks. Back to you, Katie.
Thanks so much, Stephen. And actually, Sean, you're going to take over this next segment because we're going to tackle operational alignment. Starting us off is, as I said, going to be Sean talking about WatchGuard's FlexPay options and the advantages flexible payment options can bring to your business, which we know are plentiful at this point with flexible payments.
Yes, this slide sets us up to talk about FlexPay. This is another question, a survey question that Pulse asked, and what it really shows is with a vast majority, if you look at the figures that are on the right, a vast majority, MSPs want flexible payment options and multi-tenancy support.
Yeah, that's a priority, one of their top priorities, yep.
The conversations I've had recently, very recently actually, consistency, right? Driving consistency is a big motivator here. So one of the things well, a couple of things that we've done, we've had some new things with multi-tenancy that we're going to be talking about, but the FlexPay, which has been around for a while, has evolved, and we've got all of our products now in the MSP portal tool. So got a lot of options to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, and one of the other areas that's so important for that operational alignment is just how you integrate the platform and the different solutions in the platform to how your clients are operating or how you're operating your MSP practice, right? And so we have a very strong integration portfolio here across all 4 of our security offerings, over 140 third-party integrations for your unique environment, for those specific applications that you're using that you need. And we really pride ourselves on going and identifying the solutions that need the integration for our clients, and we try and work with our partners to establish those things and prioritize those things.
Sorry, I was just going to say that I had a conversation actually with a competitor recently, and one of the we're talking about is the complexities of deployment and where the cost all lies is in the integration piece.
Absolutely.
Right, so this is super important.
Yeah, absolutely, and we support that integration process with very well publicized integration documents, how-tos. We also have publicly available RESTful APIs. So you can do some of the customization that you need really across these different solutions. So, again, we continue to build on our integrations of this portfolio and align with really what's being demanded in the market at large.
So to FlexPay, this sets us up to talk about FlexPay. FlexPay's been around a while, 12 months or so,
yeah,
for a while now. So what FlexPay does is gives our MSPs the ability to choose how they consume our products, right? There's the traditional model where partners buy up front, they buy the hardware up front, they apply the licensing, but there's some inconsistencies with that. So a lot of the MSPs over the last couple of years that have been moving into FlexPay have been taking advantage of points. And more recently, we've introduced all of our product sets or have made available via the points purchase. So with FlexPay, they get to actually choose how they want to consume WatchGuard products. They can do traditional upfront purchases, there's monthly subscriptions or monthly one and 3-year payment terms, 2 points, or they can actually even now go with a pay-as-you-go subscription, which has 0 commitment.
Yeah, I think these are great capabilities or offerings as well. We saw with some of the fallout of COVID-19 and things, people were very much looking at their finances and concerned and giving that flexibility, do more pay-you-go or instead of the upfront cost. I think it really alleviated some of the financial concerns around security that some of the businesses were potentially worried about.
And I think with inventory issues going on right now, that this has that has implications here as well, right? Being able to drive that consistency, which has been so critical in these conversations I've been having.
Absolutely.
So the other thing that we're introducing with the USP platform is the ability to support essentially an unlimited number of tenants and allowing our MSPs to configure their environments to support this kind of build through. So we've given we can now create unlimited tenants, scale to unlimited tiers, and they can provide subscriber accounts within their systems.
Yeah, multi-tier, multi-tenancy is a huge capability that's in demand if you're looking for an MSP platform. It's something that we've had at WatchGuard Cloud for quite some time now, and so it's great to extend it as all these other solutions are coming into the platform. So let's talk a little bit about some of the specific features that we've come out with in the last 6 to 8 months, really since we last spoke to you at the PKO this summer, around AuthPoint. And one of the big challenges that we heard from a lot of organizations was that MSPs we're having to use have their tech users be created on every subscriber tenant, right? They would need to have, that means each user would need to have one additional token per subscriber, and that would mean they would need to pay for additional licenses. And obviously that's a pain and something that we recognized and we wanted to respond to. And so very happy that we have introduced our off-point user inheritance capability. It allows the technical teams to get visibility into all their management accounts. These child tenants actually inherit their tech team's users. So the fallout of that is there's no additional license cost. Tech users can use their own tokens to lock into their subscribers, but MSP users can also be on the subscriber's policy. So you can control that tech user's access if you want to as an end business there. And so this is something we're proud to have delivered in the short term. And we talked about integrations already, but this is so important when we talk about Offpoint. And can you integrate with the different applications, the cloud applications, those solutions that you need? And so internally, when we look at integrations specifically around the authentication product line, we look at things like remote access and VPN. So firewalls, obviously with the WatchGuard firewall, applications, and then things through Radius. But then cloud applications, right? So SAML, Web SSO, also the operating systems. Can we provide the user login capability to their endpoints to secure those devices? And then privileged access management, identity and access management solutions as well as other integrations around hardware tokens. We have our own hardware token, but that's something we look at as well if there's a demand for that. I mentioned earlier integration guides, but this is something that we, again, take a lot of pride in, creating these integration guides, making them available to you and hopefully simple for you guys to understand how to integrate the solution in your specific use case. We have Firebox, obviously that direct integration I talked about earlier. We have our Splunk, Files Anywhere, ConnectWise, Control, NetDocuments, also the Fortinet SSL VPN integrations that we've brought in the near term. And then when you look at Firebox, some of the things that we've been able to deliver on when it comes to this operational alignment, the idea that you can use the Active Directory authentication domain. So it's an alternative to using a Radius server and the internal Firebox. You can set up users and groups for internal firewall policies, and this is something that we've included in the Firebox now, as well as support for Azure Active Directory. And so you can use Azure Directory users for mobile VPN and SSL, as well as IKE v2 and that Firebox authentication portal. And one of the most exciting features, and the features I think that a lot of the partners will be on the call will be very interested to hear about, is the Firebox policy templates. A feature that has been, I think, in high demand in the WatchGuard Cloud arena for a while. We do have that capability now. And so you can do pre-establish some templates. An example, you might want to do a global configuration template. You just have that specific template that you like to apply to your fireboxes that go out to your different clients, right? Maybe you have multiple templates, maybe based on industry. You have a retail template, you have a hospitality template, whatever it is, so you can very quickly apply policies that make sense for that specific industry, right? And even bring it to them as that type of package. And then standard configuration, so you can have a very simple deploy at once type of configuration. And the nice thing is, when you make changes to these configurations, they can be automatically updated on those devices that subscribe to these policy templates. So it's a powerful feature that we've just introduced into WatchGuard Cloud, and I think it provides a lot of value for MSPs. And then, we talked about FlexPay already and all the value provided there, but one of the big adds to the FlexPay opportunity is our Wi-Fi solutions now. You can now get your Wi-Fi with that FlexPay option. You can get the base hardware under the term licenses. You can get MSP hardware with points, with one-year contracts, with billed monthly, or you can do monthly subscription licenses. And then we also have our management licenses as well, so you can apply all of these different purchasing terms to one of the two license options on the Wi-Fi solution, be it the standard Wi-Fi solution or the more full-featured with things like the IKE v2 feature that Nick talked about, the wrap feature, our captive portal with the coffee cup that you liked. And you get all the reporting and visibility that you would want out of that solution. So, very similar to what we had done on the Total Security Suite, the basic and Total Security Suite. We have a similar structure now with the Wi-Fi security offering.
This is a simplification from what we've been doing in the past, and I think this is going to be popular with a lot of our MSP partners because they can come in and it simplifies moving between and acquiring different license types and things like that and applying those differently. So I think this is going to be a popular feature.
Absolutely. Back to you, Katie.
A very interesting conversation, and thank you so much to both of you. That brings us into our final segment before the Q&A session. So just a reminder to everyone watching that if you do have questions for our panel of experts, please enter them into the chat as soon as possible. Stephen, let's do one more handoff back to you for a review on gaining efficiencies through the Automation Core.
Awesome. So yeah, when you look at automation, I really like to look at it from a couple of things. Efficacy is important, time is important. So I have a number of statistics up on the screen here. Nearly a third, 28% of breaches in 2020 involved small to mid-sized businesses. And why that's important is when you look in the context of the next statistic, and this is from the Verizon Data Breach Report, that it takes the average mid-sized business 800 days to detect a breach. And if you're familiar with that report, the average for all businesses, when they're all combined, is around 200 days. 4 times more increase in the amount of time it takes for these businesses to detect a threat, to even know it. And honestly, very often, it's a third party that tells them that it happened anyway. Somebody has a bit of an interaction with their business that gives them a sense that there's a vulnerability, right? And so ultimately, this leads to a situation where 99% of these businesses recognize that they need managed cybersecurity services to keep up with what their dynamics are now with things like remote work as well. And so this is why ultimately automation becomes so important. The reason it's taking 800 days is because they don't have the ability to get the insights into the data that they're getting out of some of their security tools today to really understand what's going on. Automation can help you with that, with bubbling up some of those insights, as well as providing some opportunity to respond. And so, Katie mentioned the Automation Core when she did the kickoff here, and that's an initiative here at WatchGuard that we really have taken a lot of pride in, and how we build automation into our entire product portfolio. And our goals with automation ultimately are to accelerate detection and response, to cut that 800 days down to something way less than 800 days. And to give you the ability to respond based on pre-established policies and things. So you're not necessarily waiting for that manual interaction to occur, your intervention potentially on an IT team's staff, right? That can happen automatically and prevent some of the bigger fallout. Also, saving significant savings in time and cost for your staff specifically, right? And actually, we have a tool on the web that does a bit of a calculation on how you can save time on things like policy and deployment and things like that around automation and what's possible there. And I mentioned this earlier, but increased visibility, actionable insight, right? All those types of correlations, those things that we can bring together to make it very clear, this is the threat score for this device, or this is something that's going on within this environment, and making it, something that's easy to digest, even for a fairly non-technical team, if necessary. That's really what our goal here is. And so our Automation Core really looks at a framework of 4 layers, right? We have our operational automation layers, management and visibility. This is really how you operate the solutions as a security practice. And then the operational excellence is how you actually push those things out and monetize those things, how they interact with your business, and how it actually allows you to be a more efficient business. And then when you get to security automation, this is things like the idea that you can respond to threats, you could programmatically detect and investigate, as well as respond to those threats. And so, again, it's about reducing that time to detection, that time to response. That's what our goal is there. And the final layer here is really predict and anticipate. And this ultimately speaks about things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, this idea that we have an intelligent agent out there that we understand can identify threats independently, and we have the confidence that it can block those threats. And we have our Intelligent AV solution as a great example of that, that uses no signatures, completely independent artificial intelligence tool that can block threats as they try and get into your network. We also have some capabilities to do further triage with those threats using machine learning within the solution. This is something we continue to build on, because if we can block more threats without your team having to take any type of action, that's all the better. We want to prevent them from even getting to their target. So that's ultimately the goal here with the Automation Core. And so, when I started off this whole presentation, one of the things I talked about is really how the Automation Core overlays all of those other 4 buckets in the WatchGuard unified security platform. So I talked about, so when we talk about clarity and control, it's all about that threat triage, the idea that you get a threat score that's clear, it helps you prioritize what you're seeing. allows you to apply policies to respond to some of those things. It uses artificial intelligence trained to identify patterns. So these are things that humans might miss. Even a very skilled, cyber-aware IT person might miss some of these things. And so it's great to have artificial intelligence really can identify some of those things that are unusual or not common. Block more threats at the gateway with artificial intelligence. And again, that's our intelligent AV solution. Just prevent those threats from getting anywhere in the network right off the bat. If you can get an artificial intelligence solution in place that's effective at doing that, it's all the better. And shared knowledge, again, that telemetry sharing helps us to identify threats earlier, right? We can identify a threat occurring on a network and the endpoint. And in isolation, they might just be suspicious, right? But when you combine those two things together, it gives us a strong confidence that something bad or nefarious is going on. And that really helps you reduce that time to detection. And then ultimately, automate your security management. We've talked a lot about integrations, but when it comes to operational alignment, automation comes into play with how we're doing professional services automation integrations, RMM tools, our prioritization of getting those type of integrations so you can have those efficiencies as well as part of the unified security platform. As well as doing things like having your integration to do streamlined service management, integrated ticketing, automated reporting. We talked about some of that earlier. And then even auto-synchronization of asset information. And so there's a tremendous amount of automation built into the unified security platform today. There will continue to be more and more as we go forward, and something that I think is a unique differentiator for how WatchGuard's going about business.
Just going to ask if you felt this was a differentiator, because I don't hear this coming from our competitors.
Yeah.
Particularly the artificial AI.
You hear occasionally automation used as a buzzword, and it's not really, but for us it's an ethos. It's how we operate. It's an important part about how we build our products, and that will be the case going forward as well.
One more?
One more.
All right.
All right. So as a bit of a summary of some of the things that we've heard today, again, we've been talking about the WatchGuard unified security platform at length. It's really all about having that scalable platform for elevating your security practice, helping you deliver that modern security solution to your end clients. And so it starts with that comprehensive security. We did a nice session over there where we walked through some of the new solutions that we've introduced to the portfolio. But I think you'd agree we have a very strong portfolio specific to some of the competitors around things like multi-factor authentication, endpoint, network. Bringing that all together in one platform is a unique differentiator, I think. Clarity and control, again, the strength of WatchGuard Cloud. Very proud of where we've come with WatchGuard Cloud and our continued advancements there. Continue to see some goodness coming out of that. Shared knowledge, obviously we've talked a lot about this, but we are continually building those correlations and integrations, and there's going to be exciting stuff coming out about that in very short order about what we're going to be able to do around shared knowledge and threat sync and the identity framework, all of that stuff. And then finally, operational alignment. How we work with your business, those APIs, that ecosystem, FlexPay that Sean did such a great job covering. And so really, we think we have a very powerful platform available to you today that can really help you elevate that security practice. Back to you, Katie.
For real this time. Thank you so much, Stephen, and thank you, Sean. And actually, thank you to our entire panel of experts today for having us end in such a wonderful place. But before we go, it's time to do the Q&A session. So let's head over to our panel to get that started, and let's continue this conversation. There is still time to enter anything you want into the chat inside of that Q&A bar that you see there on your screen. So if you have anything to ask our panel, now is the time to do it, and we will address it live, or we'll do our best to address it afterwards. If we don't get to it during the session, we will follow up with you after the wrap. All right, let's see what we have coming in first for the panel. We have this one question here. As my use of WatchGuard Cloud increases, will my costs? Panel, what do you think?
No, that's the great thing about WatchGuard Cloud is just the scalability that it offers. And Sean mentioned that unlimited tenants. That's really what we're talking about there is this idea that you can expand your use of WatchGuard Cloud as your business grows. That's success for us. We want to continue to have that success. So it'll grow as you need and accommodate your scale as needed.
And we have another question coming here. Will APS legacy technology migrate? All models become USP and Wi-Fi management?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So with the new Wi-Fi 6 platform that's in WatchGuard Cloud, it is going to be a clean break, unfortunately, folks. Wi-Fi 5 will stay in the Wi-Fi 5 platform. The new APs moving forward will all be in the unified security platform, WatchGuard Cloud.
All right. Will there be a reinforcement in SD-WAN capabilities, considering that is part of the SASE trend?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe it's in early January we'll be releasing the 12.8 FireWare release, which actually enhances quite a bit on our SD-WAN capabilities, which are already built right into the Firebox now. But yes, there'll be some improvements there that we're very excited to bring to you.
Yeah, and actually on that 12.8 release, since we are talking about future product releases or firmware releases, we will be releasing an enhancement to the IKEv2 mobile VPN. Actually, it's called Mobike. It's going to be great for mobile VPN users, and really, essentially what it allows the mobile VPN user to do is when they're hopping networks, they don't have to re-authenticate. There's not going to be that second off-point push notification because the user will be already authenticated and it'll use the existing tunnel that was already there. So look for that in 12.8. That's going to be great.
All right, next question. What is the scope of the branding feature on the new console? And this was something we talked about all the way at the beginning of the stream today. So let's go back and reiterate that.
Yeah, sure. So I did talk about it a little bit earlier, but I think it's an important feature to be aware of. And again, that's the idea that you can lead with your brand. And so we give you the ability to add your logos to different reports and dashboards, as well as I mentioned, skin the access portal dashboard that your users would see as they're logging in. And you can even add your contact information again to reinforce your tech support team and have them really be the first call when your client has an issue. And so that's something that we've included in WatchGuard Cloud today, and I think is fairly unique to our offering.
Told you it was popular.
Yeah,
I knew it would be.
And that same branding piece also is within the Wi-Fi 6 captive portal. So
Right.
the captive portal is also controlled with your own branding in there as well.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, great answer, guys. How many users are recommended with the new AP?
Oh man, that's a real loaded question, right? So, I mean, from a theoretical standpoint, you could have up to 254 associations. But what are those 254 devices doing, right? Are we all browsing 4K, live stream USP events, or are we all printers reaching out for firmware updates? So, I mean, your mileage is really going to vary depending on the type of throughput that's going through there. But theoretically, 254. Yeah.
What about ART? When will ART be able to trace the data of the other products, making the appropriate correlation between them?
Oh, it will. It will just not be ART. So the evolution of the automation core and ThreatSync, with that, we're going to be able to achieve that correlation, but that correlation will migrate to WatchGuard Cloud, to the unified security platform itself. So stay tuned.
This one's interesting. I think you're going to have some thoughts on this, Stephen. What are your thoughts on passwordless MFA?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic. Obviously, Microsoft has really brought this to the fore, I think, in the conversation in the cybersecurity landscape. And it's easy to understand why they're going in that direction, because every year we see statistics come out about how vulnerable passwords are and how they just let you right in through the front door. My personal opinion is it's solving for the wrong issue, right? If we were at a state where businesses at large all had multi-factor authentication solutions deployed already, then I'd say maybe this is the direction that we should be looking at. But I think short of that, it's really not the best solution. And one of the things I'm a little bit concerned about is it does remove some of the agency potentially from your actual users, who maybe they have a reason that they want to rotate their passwords for whatever reason that may be, and so it gives them the ability to have more control and capability there. So it'll be interesting to see how Microsoft develops the concept. But I guess my ultimate response would be that multi-factor authentication is the priority first and foremost before you would start to consider something like passwordless.
Yeah, and I mean, you're not the only one concerned. I'm definitely concerned with this passwordless world that they think we need to move into.
Yeah.
Next question that we have, what's the vision for bringing EDR and ThreatSync host sensors together?
Oh, absolutely. What we now have with the correlation abilities within TDR will soon, stay tuned, no spoilers, be integrated in the single agent architecture, and thus will be part of the communication stack and its possibilities within the communication with WatchGuard Cloud and its belonging to the unified security platform, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Rui, I know that you have thoughts on this one too. Does the roadmap include protection for iOS devices?
Absolutely. We're going to close that circle in the next quarter. with an iOS agent.
Excellent. Next question. How is WatchGuard going to protect against attacks coming from IoT devices that, for the most part, the manufacturer will forget about as the next version or product is coming out?
Great question. So I think IoT is one of the perfect use cases for the protection model we're bringing with a combination of zero trust, application execution, and threat hunting. On one end, we lock down, sort of speaking, that IoT device, which we do, to only executing sanctioned known goodware. So again, back to our equation, we address the file vector or the vector that has to do with introducing payloads that are based on files by controlling the execution of the unknown. So unknown software cannot execute on those devices. But then at the execution stage, we have a technology built into the stack called anti-exploit that brings virtual patching. So it works out of I'll spare you the details, out of pattern and deviation and contextual detection, but what it brings is the ability to cover vulnerabilities that are not yet known and not yet translated into CVEs that we can then address with patch management, right? So it's a perfect use case, and I believe our combination of the zero trust application execution and threat hunting brings a lot to the IoT world. Also, with our ability to support legacy operating systems, like as far or as early as XP Service Pack 3
don't say it.
in 2003, which, believe it or not,
Yeah.
they're still in the IoT and specifically in the OT world.
Yep, absolutely. It's scary.
So this next viewer is saying, even if a product is best in breed, it has been my experience that single solutions may introduce gaps into the protection of the business and have unintended consequences. Barring ease of use, how does using a single vendor, one pane of glass solution protect the business and the processes better than a multi-vendor, multi-layered approach?
Yeah, this is sort of like the question I addressed earlier when I started off the shared knowledge, and it really comes down to that special sauce that we were able to provide with that shared knowledge capability. You know, if you used a single agent that didn't share, or a single platform that didn't share information across your different layers, there could be vulnerabilities there. But that insight sharing across the layers, and this is something that's obviously an initiative in the XDR types of solutions that are becoming so popular and in demand. That's the recognition of the importance of sharing data across different security tools. Otherwise, there's going to be valuable data left in security silos that you might not really get access to. So my response would be that the improvement that you can get from that correlation, that shared knowledge is overall in security efficacy, is ultimately what the real benefit is compared to just the ease of use goal.
So this is a very on-the-nose question that I think a lot of people want to know. When will these features be available for MSPs to implement?
Yeah, so these features are available today. They have been for quite some time. I'm sure there is a little bit of vision that we talked about today, but for the most part, if you've got access to cloud.watchguard.com and you've got fireboxes, AuthPoint, our access points, even our EPDR solution, the modules, it's all there. The API access, start using it now. Absolutely.
Yeah, our goal with this session really was to bring the reality to you too. What's available today, and really the only exception there would be some of those geo policies I talked about on the authentication solution. I tried to make it very clear with the actual dates on when they're going to be released. But we didn't really want to do a roadmap session this time. We think we did that this summer. We wanted to show you how we've executed on that and how it's aligning with our vision.
Great. I'll be back for that roadmap session then. Moving on to this next question. Panda was not recognized as the strongest player in the security marketplace, this viewer says. What has WatchGuard done to improve the product?
Oh, what do I get about remember the old days, right? Well, I'll tell you this. So Panda, for those that know Panda, had a stint or two in the network security space. So that tells you a story of how we wanted and needed to be bigger than the endpoint, and we recognized that there was a broader story to be had with our expertise there, even if our expertise has been mainly focused on the endpoint. Well, WatchGuard made that happen for us, and we're part not only of the unified security platform as it stands today, but to what it will become as we build those more enhanced and sophisticated bridges, leveraging on the depth of endpoint telemetry that we know we have. On the other side, I think as important as a feature, and you will like this one, FlexPay. I mean, you can even consider it a feature, right? The possibilities that we have today within the endpoint security world and into the world of WatchGuard Cloud, inventory management, allocation, deallocation of licenses, bring a reality and a flexibility, no pun intended, that we did not have in the Panda world. And I think to our partner base, that is as important as a feature. So yeah, that is something that definitely WatchGuard brought to the Panda world as well.
This next question says, can WatchGuard Cloud allow MSPs to share reports with their individual clients to view their network from cloud?
Absolutely, yeah. So you can, with all the reports that's built into WatchGuard Cloud, you can have those delivered on time schedules, monthly, weekly. You can specify very specific start and end times, and they're delivered via email. And they're also stored within WatchGuard Cloud as well. They have an expiration date. But really, all you're limited to, if you want to call it being limited, is an email address. Your clients have email addresses. Your system admin teams might have aliases to get reports, things like that. As long as you've got an email address, you can send that report to anybody you want.
So this viewer says, you mentioned complexity being a problem with implementing security, and I agree. I'm wondering if WatchGuard is planning to address the complexity in deploying web blocker on an HTTPS proxy due to the certificate on the Firebox. Many of our smaller customers do not have a CA, so we simply do not enable web blocker on HTTPS because it is too complicated to deploy the certificate manually to each workstation.
Oh man, let's unpack that one. Number one, please don't not use WebBlocker. Like, that's not good. And WebBlocker doesn't require you to use a certificate. That is a big common error that we see in support. WebBlocker works with HTTP and HTTPS without a certificate, period. The way that we do it with HTTPS, if you're curious, is with the SNI value that's on the certificate, which is usually the domain that you're going to. The second part of your question about content inspection and deploying the certificate, couple ways to have that conversation. I get it. The small organizations that are using the smaller boxes, they typically don't have a CA. So your first option is we give you a certificate. It's built into the firewall. If you wanted to use a free CA tool, there's plenty of them out there. In fact, we have training videos on them that name drop some of the open source ones out there that are free. You could import your own CA into the Firebox, and we actually have a convenient cert portal that allows you to log into the cert portal, download that cert, and then install it. And a third option to deploy that CA certificate, again, just for doing HTTPS content inspection, you could use an RMM tool. And Rui over here will tell you about a great RMM tool that we have that could also deploy that CA certificate, Rui, right?
Absolutely. We can deploy it through systems management, through our systems management platform. We can facilitate that deployment by building a component that does it seamlessly and without user interaction.
Yeah. So do me a favor, if you don't mind, and send your email over into the chat, and I'll make sure to follow up with you to make sure that you get web blocker and content inspection working correctly as it should be, because it should not be painful.
Absolutely.
A great point, guys. This next question asks, we have customers using WatchGuard firewalls and Wi-Fi products, but their endpoints are with other vendors and they do not wish to switch. Is there any thought on how to bring these situations into WatchGuard Cloud for management?
Absolutely. The flexibility of the agent allows that. So what we know as WatchGuard, or what we configure and license as WatchGuard EDR, is the possibility to implement EDR and its associated services, the Zero Trust Application Service, the threat hunting, the stack that brings the anti-exploit, the virtual patching, and all the other modules, ART, full encryption and patch management without all of this, without replacing an existing endpoint solution. And the great thing about it is, at the moment that the client is ready to move on from the existing endpoint solution and sort of buys into the unified security platform and wants it to work together in EPDR, in the combined solution, we can transition that seamlessly again without any additional deployment and without even a restart of services on the management endpoints. And it could do this in one go for thousands of endpoints if need be. So that flexibility is there by the very nature of the agent implementation and its architecture in the endpoint.
This next viewer is asking, advanced reporting seems like it would be a replacement for ThreatSync or redundant to ThreatSync. Is advanced reporting considered a SIEM solution? It would be nice to see Firebox and Wi-Fi Cloud integrated here.
Oh yeah, you'll see that in the unified security platform. So the way that advanced reporting tool works for us, and obviously its cost and the fact that we are not licensing, offering 12 months without licensing volume data, limits it. I mean, to paraphrase you, if you want to call it a limitation, to only consume the data coming from the endpoints. But obviously, also, within the scope of what we've been discussing here, we need more than that. So like I think I mentioned this previously, well, that evolution will not, or that revolution will not be done, it will be televised. It's being televised right now, right? It will not be done in advanced reporting tool. It will be the unified security platform and ThreatSync that will allow that enhancement, that step up.
I think I would also note, though, that we do have SIEMFeeder, so you can export logs off of ART into your own SIEM as well.
Absolutely. So SIEMs are, first, when I associate SIEMs compared to what we do with ART, I mean, that correlation and that adding other sources and costs associated with data. But if you have, it doesn't need to be a full-blown SIEM. If you have a data analytics platform that can consume standard formats in syslog, via syslog or Kafka queues, we have a module called SIEMFeeder that can feed the endpoint telemetry and enrich that third-party SIEM or data analytics platform. It's an additional module, it's a sort of connector, and it's available to make that happen without advanced reporting tool or in addition to advanced reporting tool.
Wow.
This next question asks, does WatchGuard have the WIPS feature in the new Wi-Fi 6 access points?
Oh, the WIPS feature, WIPS. Yeah, so obviously the Wi-Fi 5 platform and being able to protect against the known Wi-Fi threats out there. You saw when I was talking about the Wi-Fi 6 access points that the AP330 and the 430CR and the upcoming 432, they will all have a security radio where we will have some WIPS technology in there. It's not there today, but we've got the device scanning radios in there. I think you can put the two and two together.
This next question appears to be a two-parter. Do we have to do another or additional installs for PM or full encryption? And then we also have, is WatchGuard EDR a third party or a WatchGuard developed?
Okay, so patch management, full encryption, or any of the other modules do not imply any additional deployments. They're part of the unified or the single agent architecture. So when you deploy the agent with just WatchGuard EPP with a base antivirus offering, you're already deploying it all. You're just turning features on and off according to the licensing that is activated. So it is a true, and I'll stand behind this and say it again, it is a true single agent architecture. What was the other part of the question?
Sure, I'll repeat it. Is the WatchGuard EDR a third party or WatchGuard developed?
Absolutely not. 100% WatchGuard developed. So our Zero Trust application service is unique in the market. The combination with the addition of threat hunting in 2017 and the backend platform that supports it, it's 100% proprietary. And as an historical reference, again from the Panda days, the EDR and EPDR solutions have been around since in the US, August 2015. So it's a product that is tried and true and continues to evolve.
This next question, are there plans to incorporate LTE optional modules as failover options for the larger models?
Yes, the LTE module today is only available for the T80, but let's not forget the other options that we have available with any of our fireboxes, all the way down to our smallest tabletop, all the way up to our largest rack mount. We incorporated modem as an interface, and really, it's about the SD-WAN story. Being able to route traffic based on latency loss and jitter allows you to also route traffic based on the cost of your ISP connection, your MPLS, or that modem that you might plug in via a USB stick in the back of a firebox. It literally allows you to configure another interface within your Firebox configuration as a interface that's modem as an interface. So yeah, it would be great to, with the modularity on the brand new boxes, to have an LTE module for that. Maybe it's something on the roadmap, but the last time I checked, there was no one from product management here, so I can't answer that one. But let's not forget about modem as an interface with the USB devices.
Yeah, we don't want to get you in trouble, Nick. Thanks for that. We've reached our final question today, actually, so I'll go ahead and get to that now. It goes, templating on Firebox Cloud Management sounds great. Can you speak to how the templates would overlay with customer or site-specific devices?
Yeah, absolutely. So the templates today will overlay within a Firebox managed within WatchGuard Cloud, but you can also go into that appliance or into that configuration for that appliance and create new policies. For those of you that haven't been in that configuration yet, we've kind of designed the policies a little bit different. We have first run policies, core policies, and then last run policies. For the most part, the core policies are going to be your security services that would be configured over a proxy. If you simply wanted to make a policy sit at a higher precedence than that, you could configure it as a first run policy. For the most part, though, you're going to be using those templates across multiple tenants within your service provider account, and it's going to be more of a standardization. So hopefully you're not trying to circumvent something that you've already tried to put in place for a reason. But yes, you will have the granular ability to have those policies coexist with one another.
All right, gentlemen, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you again to our panel for the great discussions, and thank you, the valued partners, for joining us today, especially during such a busy time of year. We hope you found it productive and are leaving with some insights to help you as you finish out 2021 and move into the next year. On behalf of the WatchGuard team, thank you for joining us and have a great day.